My name is Eincrou, and welcome to your Red Pill game review for Metro Last Light. But first, before we get started, I want to take some time and introduce you to this series. At the beginning of this year, I wanted to start making regular content. One thing I wanted to do was a series that reviews games from a Red Pill perspective. It wasn't going to talk about game mechanics, graphics, controls, and nerdy shit like that, no. This is just taking a look at games with an analytical eye and seeing where they fit into a worldview that is not muzzled by political correctness in any way, shape, or form. It came about as a desire to find a middle ground between the two types of videos I had put on this channel thus far. I wanted to put my creativity and video editing skills, such that they are, into videos, but it takes a ridiculous amount of work to do a nice presentation like in these videos that I made. It's not easy to turn a black screen into engaging imagery. The other kind of video was me just talking, but with just a static image or two, very quick and easy to produce. This is a pretty common format for videos I've seen lately, but it would be nice to take full advantage of the medium and give our community videos we can, and I know this is going to sound odd to you, but to give our community videos we can actually watch. This concept was tentatively titled Red Pill Game Reviews. The red pill is of course a reference to the Matrix, and is commonly understood to signify deciding to learn the true and unpleasant nature of reality.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have several invoices to write. Divorce is such a profitable legal institution.
It's perhaps not the best name ever, but people around these parts will instantly know what it means when they hear the title, so that's good. The first game I was going to cover for this series was Assassin's Creed 3. This was the perfect game for me to look at since it had a huge storyline and was set in a unique time period, the American Revolution.
Yes, we must indeed all hang together. Or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately.
And as I was playing, I was thinking of just dozens and dozens and scores and hundreds of awesome and incredible points that I wanted to make and put in my Red Pill game review for Assassin's Creed 3. Well, that video obviously never got made. My life sucks, and as a direct result, the necessary motivation was never found. But it's not forever impossible to still make the video. I have 700 gigabytes of footage I was planning to use, but it's been about 4 months since I played the game. I didn't write down any notes, so I've forgotten many of the awesome and brilliant points I wanted to make. That video probably will not happen. However, this series is happening. The pilot episode of Red Pill Game Reviews will be concerning a newly released first-person shooter, Metro Last Light. Since this is the very first episode, I'm going to do this in a way that feels most natural to me, meaning that I'm going to say every damn thing I want to say about this game. And I have a lot to say, so it's going to run long, but I'm okay with that. The people most likely to watch this are used to long-form content, but unlike most videos in the YouTube precinct of the Androsphere, you will get to enjoy watching relevant footage from the best-looking game ever made. I just finished Metro Last Light, so it remains fresh on the mind. I also did something very unusual regarding this game. I got into an internet debate about it, but more on that later when I get into the analysis. Better first to describe the premise of the game. And even before I do that, a point about spoilers. Spoilers used to mean information that would ruin elements of a plot that were meant to be surprising or unexpected. But it seems like now, people just say spoilers in regards to any information about a game story. Me, I'm a bit old-fashioned in this regard. I think a spoiler should actually cause something to be spoiled. I can assure you that nothing will be spoiled in this manner in this video.
Thank you very much for joining.
Going forward, though, I won't limit myself to discussing non-spoiler material like a traditional nerdy-style game review, but I will always say if there are or are not experience-destroying spoilers in a video. Alright, prefacing complete. Onward to the review. Metro Last Light is the sequel to Metro 2033, which was based on a novel of the same name. No, I haven't read it, though they encourage you to do so in-game. It's a post-apocalyptic setting, taking place in the subway tunnels of Moscow, Russia. The surface has been ravaged by nuclear war and is completely uninhabitable, though short expeditions are possible. Just be sure to bring a gas mask and plenty of filters. Post-apocalyptic is always a setting with lots of potential, I find. Authors are free to imagine humanity behaving in all sorts of ways that are disapproved of in contemporary society.
Here you are a suspect in the distribution of corrupted genes, and this is your trial. If your skull has the correct proportions, you are free to go. If not, you are an abomination. Science, you see.
This is an outrage!
I told you to stay still!
Metro society evolved into re-embracing some of the particularly destructive ideologies of the 20th century.
Let's look it up in the table. Ah, congratulations. You're a mutant.
No, please!
To the garbage chute.
The main factions are the new Soviet Union and the Fourth Reich. That a Nazi faction would come about from the survivors of Moscow when the nuclear war happened in 2013 seems really odd to me. I don't think the games explain how this happened, but I've heard that the books do. These factions control areas of the metro and war with each other. Each are hostile to unaffiliated metro stations. The many stations have their own way of life and methods of survival. It is here that regular people try to make the best of a hopeless situation. The Metro games are incredibly atmospheric, and a huge amount of work was put in by developer 4A Games to convey how people lived. The safe zones, the metro stations, have a lot of people going about their business, and there are many conversations you can choose to listen to. All in all, I found this portrayal of humanity on the edge of survival to be extremely believable and satisfying from a Red Pill perspective. The Metro series author, Dmitry Gluskovsky, felt no reason to pretend like ruthlessness would not rule the day, and 4A Games felt no reason to disagree with his vision when they made these games.
Let's move! It's gonna be another Stalingrad around here!
Life is grim in the Metro, for men, women, and children. In addition to simply trying to remain well-fed and keeping the lights on, the nuclear radiation has mutated all kinds of vicious creatures that roam the railways. Each station, even those unaffiliated with the warring factions, have to keep soldiers ready to defend against these monsters. Unsurprisingly, pretty much all of these warriors are male. There are a few women that might be soldiers in a Nazi rally at the beginning of the game, but none of them are in uniform, so it's inconclusive. For all intents and purposes, across the two factions and the various independent stations, there is only one exception to the portrayal of all Metro fighters as being men. She is a ranger of the Spartan Order and the daughter of the ranger leader, and with regards to her fitness as a warrior, of course.
I'll send a sniper along. My best. Anna!
Yes, sir.
Why would we need a sniper? To eliminate the creature and finish the Order's job!
Come on, Rabbit.
As you might expect, she's a stereotypical bitch, and talks shit most of the time you're on the mission.
Didn't you and my father take the monorail when you went out to fire the missiles at the Dark One's nest? That's a good sign, Rabbit. Maybe we'll have luck with this mission, too. Power's working. Open the gate. I'll cover the passage. Great. You did fine after all. Great. The ladder. It's just a little more walking. Then we'll see if you're rabbit or man. Perfect. Put the mask on. Quit looking at my ass. It way out of your reach, Rabbit. Let's go to the main entrance. There's a good shooting position there. I can cover a lot of territory. You're supposed to be immune to their... what? Influence? Well, I don't have your gift. So hop along, Rabbit. What's keeping you? Come on!
She's supposed to be helping you kill the last Dark One, but things don't go as planned, and she ends up abandoning you.
Guten Morgen!
It's a while before we see her again, but she's a bit more helpful this time, fighting alongside the men trying to rescue you from a mutated whatever the fuck.
Artyom, let's hit the big one! I had you sighted when you were way out there. Almost shot you, too. That would teach you to answer radio hails. But I felt it was you. I hope you'll forgive me for the gardens. It took me time. I didn't understand until I saw you in action, and I almost got you killed. You don't make this easy for me, Artyom. I'll stop for now. Go on and get ready. The guys are coming soon and we're all going to Oktyabrskaya.
But about 5 minutes later, she gets captured, and you, of course, have to go and find and rescue her. God damn it. We'll talk more about her later. Now let's get back to basically all of the soldiers in the Metro being male. When I stop to think about it, it's amusing for me to consider the differing ways gender ideologues of various persuasions might take this fact. Of course, feminists would talk about how this represents chauvinism and the belief that women are weak. Never mind that while it's easy to find feminists and blue pillars in general complaining about this in the comfort of modern civilization, you would be hard-pressed to find anybody complaining if this situation was actual reality. It'd be sort of a return to how there were no complaints about the lack of female lancers or female hoplites for most of human history, when warfare and combat was much more based around using soldiers as cannon fodder and had massive casualties. On the other hand, there are people calling themselves men's human rights activists that might take the opportunity to invoke the concept of male disposability. I can easily understand this point of view. Most of the corpses littering the Metro that serve the gameplay mechanic function of being ammo restocking nodes are the remains of fallen men. And by most, I of course mean 100.0%. There are dead women to be found, but they never serve as ammo nodes. Without exception, they are slaughtered civilians and never fallen warriors. So then, Metro society is clearly a place that seems to embrace male disposability. But the thing is, what are the alternatives? When shit gets real and basic survival is the highest aspiration of human groups, somebody has to protect the nest. Excursions to the surface wasteland are necessary to scavenge vital resources. Warrens of monsters have to be cleared out before they multiply. Wandering bandits have to be discouraged from murdering and from stealing the resources you've already risked your life to get. In the absence of well-trained monkeys, or perhaps advanced robotic contraptions capable of fulfilling these non-negotiable functions better than men, there will always be brave men willing to step up to the task.
Fuck!
Got there!
Who goes there?
Stand still or we shoot. We're armed.
Don't shoot! We are civilians! There are women and children here! Leave and let leave, okay?
We're refugees from the Red Line. I'm in charge here, basically, though there's nobody under my command. All the battle-worthy men went with the other caravan. Half a click ahead. I thought they'd protect us, but they were attacked. We heard the shooting. It subsided. But it doesn't look like our people survived. So we can't go any further. And if we go back, it's the firing spot for us.
We do find that not all men doing these tasks stepped up, so to speak.
The Reds are mobilizing. They've recruited old men, schoolboys, sent them off to training camps. I tell you, war is coming.
But we'll return to that topic later on. I wonder, would the people concerned with male disposability rather see higher proportions of female soldiers, even in this type of setting? It's possible that there are at least some female soldiers in the Metro other than Anna. As mentioned earlier, a handful of women can be seen among the Reich soldiers during a speech. They aren't wearing any kind of uniform, so it's uncertain what their role or purpose is. What is certain is that female soldiers are never seen in combat. When I first came up with the idea of Red Pill game reviews, I wanted to have a certain kind of badge or certificate or something along those lines to pin on games. This badge would be awarded to games that have killable virtual human enemies, often requiring you to kill hundreds or thousands to complete the game, but have 0 that are virtual human females. I think it's important to point these types of games out because it makes it very clear the hypocrisy of people that think negative portrayals of women in games need to be stamped out, yet they have not a word to say about what, if their hysteria is correct, must certainly be more disrespectful and vastly more dangerous. The portrayal of many males that serve absolutely no purpose or function other than to die at the hands of the player. I mean, outright killing a group of people must be certainly more disrespectful to a group of people than getting a chubby because they're hot. Metro Last Light has absolutely 0 killable enemies that appear in the form of a woman, and to my knowledge, there's only 1 killable woman in the game altogether. The ironic thing about this one woman is that to even be in the position to kill her, you first have to save her from 2 would-be rapists. If you don't, they won't actually rape her, but they will kill her. So you gotta kill the rapist, and then you may shoot her or stab her, whichever is your desire. Now, I'm not a complete dick, so I saved her and left it at that.
What? You think you're too good?
Was it?
Science, you see.
So I saved her and left it at that. As a result, the only humans to die at my hands over the course of the entire game were men. And die they did, by the hundreds. It doesn't bother me one bit to play a game like this, so maybe I'm violent and destructive. I've internalized male disposability, and so I am a bad man according to at least 7 ideologies. At least I can say that my nonchalance does not cast me as a hypocrite like the schneevies who complain about portrayals of women in games. And now, we're going to talk about one such blue pill addict that I had a run-in with.
I have to be strong. Stronger than I've ever been. I won't let them do this to Dragon Ball Z!
That is Angry Joe, a man who reviews video games as an irate, exaggerated personality. I absolutely love his work, and as an amateur video editor myself, I find his visual effects skills to be admirable. However, I disagreed with his discussion of the women in Metro Last Light. I decided to say as much in a comment. I don't often leave comments on the internet, and it's even more rare that I comment on a video with a large audience. But I've found that when I do, I have a better than 75% rate of getting a top comment spot. This comment continued that trend. When I leave a comment in this type of environment, it is carefully and deliberately crafted to have maximum effect. It was a bit of a risk to enter into this discussion, because at that point I had only played a few hours into the game, but I was certain that if I limited the topic to 2 specific claims Joe made, that I would be able to defend my position against all comers. The ass and titties segment.
Ass, titties, ass and titties.
Yes, I'm going to call it that. The ass and titties segment of his video was of course funny as hell, no doubt. But it made some accusations I believe to be false based upon my several hours playing the game. Point of contention number 1 was that the text on the screen behind him, that women in this game were generally in one of 2 states of undress, was not accurate. It was not an accurate generalization. And I've made videos about generalizations. I know what a proper generalization is very well. And according to my opinion, this was not one. This was repeated a few minutes later. Girls are either naked or about to get naked. Point of contention number 2 was directly after this, which was text saying, men only, no girls allowed. So, my comment challenged the accuracy of these generalizations, but the key element of the comment was demeaning Joe's points as a personal problem rather than as a fault of the game. It was pure rhetoric, in stark contrast to the dialectic I led off with, but it was framed in such a way that the only manner in which to effectively disagree with the idea that Joe only noticed the sexualized women with their titties falling out was to prove my rational arguments to be wrong. I don't often participate in comment sections, but if I do, it's always because I want to have a dialogue or a debate with people about what I've said. I expected to argue with some viewers, but what actually ended up happening was the opposite of that expectation. I got masses of upvotes from viewers, but few viewers posted a comment that could be considered to be in disagreement. I had no dialogues with any of them. The only person whom I did debate with was Angry Joe himself. Now, I could do a detailed analysis of every entry in my debate with him, and it would be instructive if I were to do so, but I'll just hit the highlights. The first thing is, why did he even reply at all? If I may be permitted to psychologize, and I usually don't like seeing people do this or doing it myself, but I think he expected that all persons of character and sophistication would not challenge his valiant defense of women from sexual objectification. What he did not expect was to have the tables turned on his ass and have himself be called a lecher in such a convincing fashion. This comment, in which he was calmly and smoothly accused of lechery, was massively upvoted and was sitting at the top of his video, in plain sight of the thousands clicking the page to watch. Yeah, that is probably not what a YouTube channel operator wants to have happen. So he was vile at first, calling me a troll and such. You know how it goes on the internet. I asked him, what did he think were better roles for men and women in the Metro? What type of jobs and duties were palatable to his enlightened and progressive sensibilities? Well, he put zero thought into it and replied with the most obvious thing a non-imaginative person could ever possibly imagine. Women should be fighting right alongside of the men. The part, though, that's really amusing is that he made the effort to add that these women would pull their weight. That right there is very, very curious. Did he say this to preempt the predictable rebuttal that women are generally weaker and less aggressive than men, thereby requiring men to pick up their slack? Or did he say it to shore up what he himself perceived as an unlikely scenario? Regardless, my response was not the one most might make in this type of situation. I wanted to capitalize on what I thought might be shakiness and uncertainty of this idea in his mind, so I treated it with disinterested dismissal. I didn't make any counter-argument. I just matter-of-factly spoke as if everyone knows that women would not, in fact, pull their weight in actual combat. It was at this point in the discussion that Man-Woman Myth popped in to lend me some support, which was welcome. I'm not sure how he found out that this stuff was going on. Maybe it was through my Twitter, but it was nice to get another person to show numbers in support of the point of view I was expressing. I was getting many upvotes throughout the debate, but only 1 or 2 viewers had the balls to go on record and agree with me by leaving supportive comments. So it was very nice of Man-Woman Myth to do so. At some point during all of this, I read a comment that referenced a tweet Angry Joe had made. Now, I don't follow this guy's Twitter, so I went and searched to check it out. He had tweeted his astonishment that some of his viewers thought depicting most women as prostitutes was a realistic way of going about it. I can't believe people actually believe that shit. Let's all laugh and point and sputter and feel really good about ourselves. This is, of course, a straw man of my position, but what's peculiar is that it's a particularly bizarre straw man. This is an unholy synthesis of his factually incorrect judgment that most of the women in the metro are prostitutes. Yeah, he really believes that. Melded with my own statement that I thought the overall depiction of women was fairly realistic. My statement that it was fairly realistic was based upon the women of the metro as they actually appear in the game. What it was not based on was Angry Joe's demonstrably false belief that all of the women in the game were sexualized, save just 2. If Joe's catastrophically false opinion on how many sex workers were in the game was actually true, I would be among the first to agree that it was unrealistic. And not because I want to grandstand as a white knight for women and get a supportive tweet from my colleague. No, but because there's just so much shit that needs to be done for metro communities to survive. You couldn't afford to have more than 1 or 2% of women as sex workers. That is a red pill way of looking at the situation all the way. And that is the truth that hurts. So we debated in the comments of his video for a while. And as internet discussions typically go, eventually it degenerated into him making personal attacks based on fabricated accusations of my having committed misconduct in the debate. I had asked him to debate with honor rather than straw-manning me, as he continuously did by exaggerating my position, such as implying that I wanted him to list dozens of game NPCs. No, Joe. If you generalize, that is absolutely fine. I simply wanted your generalizations about the women in the metro to be less fucking full of easily disproven bullshit.
Measures had a thing for me, and those that filled
Sorry.
He told me all about their standards, about the racial struggle
Why?
to keep
What happened?
Vitya didn't make it.
Really, they're just
How? So did you repel that whatever Führer?
I wish. I did send him flying once, and got summons 3 days later. He'd cover up the black eye.
Wow! That is a really appetizing smell you have here, Simeonovna. Is it something new?
No? As if mushrooms with mushroom sauce? Hey, keep your hands out of the pot, or you're getting smacked in the head.
So he completely misrepresented why I invoked his honor and pretended that I failed to respond to any of his points. I was called a white knight for the developer of the game. Oh man, let me tell you, we here in the Red Pill Society know a thing or two about white knights. They're guys who defend bad women or who make up bullshit so that they can publicly be seen doing so. No, Joe. I don't give a shit about 4A games. What I do is the sensible thing. I defend my hobby against lies intended to make video gaming look bad. That is exactly what you should be doing with your large platform rather than becoming a source of false information yourself. At this point, several other viewers were telling him that he was wrong about the makeup of women in the metro, and he did slightly back down on his claim that all women were in varying states of undress, but he still stuck to his laughably fucking inaccurate belief that the majority of the women in the metro were sexualized. He was sticking by his insanely imperceptive belief that the two women I referenced in my initial post were the only two non-sexualized women in the game. It was pretty much over, so I just declared victory, and that was the end of that. And that's fine. The point was not to convince Angry Joe of anything. I knew full well that he was not in a position to retract any of the points he had made in the video. He would have had to either take down the video to cut those parts out, losing 100,000 views in the process, or he'd have to prostrate himself for thousands more to see by putting an annotation up during the ass and titties segment admitting an error. Even though he did admit an error to me, he didn't put up any annotation or add anything to the video description to alert viewers that he acknowledges a factual error in his review. A review which looks likely to be eventually viewed by more than 1 million people. His admission in the comments will never be seen. The video has 10,000 comments at this moment, and it will only go up. I'll come back to my frustrations on this later. But as I was saying about me not aiming to get Angry Joe to admit error or change his mind, the point of my efforts was the same as in the video response I made to Man Woman Myth about the situation he was in with the misandrist science poster. The objective was to demonstrate to all viewing my debate with Angry Joe that resisting the feminist infiltrators and their duped enforcers can be done on perfectly fucking solid ground. I was able to garner upvotes throughout the debate, even though I was disagreeing with the owner of a very popular channel on his own turf. He received more upvotes, of course, but that's because people were upvoting his comments without seeing the entire conversation. As a result, people voted up his comments based on their ponage value in and of themselves, rather than how valid a response they are within the debate taken as a whole. Regardless, I only had one comment downvoted into oblivion. It was just a comment clarifying the topics of contention, so it's not that big of a deal. This is something I've never seen on YouTube. With a strong position and a good tactical knowledge of how to conduct oneself during a debate, both dialectically and rhetorically, it is possible for red pill truth to beat out blue pill cowardice and platitudes, even in presumptively hostile territory. That is what Man Woman Myth accomplished in his dealings with the nasty poster, and more of this is what I advocated in my response video. Now, let's take a real look at the women in Metro Last Light, and since this is an analytical video rather than pure entertainment, I'm going to do so in massive fucking detail. Science, you see. As I said earlier, when I had my debate on Angry Joe's page, I hadn't actually finished the game yet, but as I continued through the game after that debate, I was looking at the women of the Metro more closely than I probably otherwise would have. I recorded the entirety of the sexy sections of sexualness that he had complained about. And I also took screenshots of many women who did not fit AJ's statement, which is that women are either naked or about to become naked. Naked women are indeed in the minority of all women shown in the Metro. The sections with sexy women, for example the can-can dancers, the strip club, and the scene with Anna, were such incredibly minor and short parts of the game that they just hardly even deserve mention. But we're going to mention them, and we're going to do so in the aforementioned massive fucking detail. So sit back, relax, put on your sciencey lab coat if you got one, and let me take you through this. The first time in the game that you see women portrayed in a titillating fashion is a theater show. 9 women dance on stage, and they can be found backstage after the show. I'm going to run this conversation in the dancer's dressing room sped up. There's a timer on the bottom that is also sped up to the same exact degree, so we can determine how long each section lasts. These are women we could fairly say are about to become undressed. There are 6 women here bickering about the boyfriend of one of the redheads. If you choose to listen to this completely optional conversation, it's a grand total of 1.5 minutes. In the next room, there are 2 obscured women in the bath wondering why men of the various factions are so focused on fighting each other rather than exterminating the mutated monsters. They have a fair point, all things considered, but if you choose to listen to this completely optional dialogue between 2 barely visible naked women, it lasts about 40 seconds. The next time Titillating Women are seen is in, oh my god, is this a sex shop? Lovely things within, I'm sure. We shall enter for science.
Just don't hurt the girls.
Now, I recorded this entire sequence, and it was my first time doing this, so you can see exactly what my naughty little male brain compelled me to do. As you can see, I sat down for a minute. I might have even thrown a few bullets her way, tipping her for a pole well danced. The reason you go into this strip club is to tail a certain man and his associates. They apparently wanted to take a breather from their evil doings. These men refused to pay for their entertainment, so that's how you know. That's how you really know you're supposed to hate these guys. It's important to point out that this sex shop doesn't seem to be doing anything that would be illegal in modern America. I didn't notice anything other than pole dancing and private lap dances. And speaking of lap dances, you may receive one from a woman if you pay her a few bullets.
What kind of dance would you like, sweetie? Tell me, don't be shy. I'm quite imaginative.
Of course I paid for the lap dance. I'd like to have you believe that I just did it once and that was it, but I have the video playing here. I'm not going to cut it or play tricks on my beloved audience. No. So I got to come clean. I paid her for a second dance, man. And the second time, though, it was mostly just to see if the animations would be different, which it is. I mean, she doesn't get in your face the second time. Do you all not really get it yet? Do I have to explain myself to you every single time? Well, I won't. The Nazi interrogator will.
Science, you see.
So anyways, after my 2 dances, I had had my fill and got up. I discovered a hookah was to my left, which I imbibed once. Then twice.
Oh yeah.
And a third. And I passed out. This sequence was less than 5 minutes long, even with my despicable male brain compelling me to take part in a few completely optional activities. As far as I can tell, there were 5 or 6 women here, bringing the total to 15 naked, or about to be naked, women. The nudity in this area was slammed by Joe for feeling out of place.
Metro has a really out-of-place segment in it where it just throws nudity at you because, you know, sex.
This came up early in my discussion with Joe, but I specifically told him that I didn't disagree with him about it. The only reason I said that was because I hadn't gotten that far into the game yet, so I wanted to avoid talking about something that I was ignorant of. That is a bad position to be in, and more often than not, you get your ass handed to you if you get yourself in that situation. But now that I have played this section, I can say that I do in fact disagree with him and the many commenters who also complained about this nudity supposedly having no context and feeling forced. Let's rewind this a bit, and if you weren't paying attention the first time, do so this time, please. We are walking into a sex shop. You got that? A sex shop. You are compelled by the storyline to enter said sex shop because this is where the evil people you were supposed to be trailing decided to go and have themselves a little break.
For almost no reason at all, you're suddenly in a strip club.
Now, inside of this sex shop, you will find a woman who doesn't give a shit about you or your mission. She interrupts your eavesdropping because she wants you to pay her to give you a semi-nude lap dance. And if you so desire, if your male brain so compels you, you may press the E key on your keyboard and pay her a few bullets to give you a lap dance. Did I forget to mention that we are currently inside a sex shop? I just want to be clear on that. A sex shop that you entered because you were supposed to be following a bad guy. And, you know, bad guys like they sell some ass and titties every once in a while, am I right?
IS&T.
You know, if this isn't sufficient context, I'd love to hear these way too sophisticated men decrying this section for being random and unnecessary. I'd love to hear them give their own ideas for how developers could make a sex shop a legitimate location in a post-apocalyptic video game. And bonus points if they can figure out how to have it make sense to have female nudity inside of that sex shop in their post-apocalyptic game. Just trying to give some chances for these guys to show how smart they are. Okay, enough about that. Back to the scientific examination of the titillating women in the Metro. The final scenario with a woman in a titillating position was the scene with Anna after my valiant and dangerous effort to rescue her from the bad men. I told you we'd talk about her again. I am such a hero, traveling through a literal burning fucking city to save the woman who was calling me a goddamn rabbit a few days prior. Warning, red pill questions incoming. How much effort did she put in to save me when the Nazis captured me? She admitted to nearly getting me killed and even laughed about it. Or maybe she made her rescue attempt when the fucking communists captured me? Oh, didn't happen? But hey, man, it's all good. She will allow you to lie with her. It's all better now, right? I mean, the screen fades to white. Isn't white the universal color of forgiveness? So how about the context of this partial nudity? Well, it's a woman who wants to make love to you, expressing her sexuality. You do not ever question the legitimacy of or put limits on a woman's sexuality. That's enough said for you blue pillars out there. We shall move along now. This is the only titillating scene that is completely mandatory, but it only lasts about a minute. And that brings the grand total titillation time to... Less than 10 minutes was spent viewing this graphic engine's uncanny ability to reproduce the elasticity of memory tissues.
In fact, now that I think about it, all the women in the game are sexualized.
Oh, you're joking.
No, he's not.
All the women in the game are sexualized. 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 All the women in the game, sexualized. All the women in the game are 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 sexualized. All the women in the game sexualized. All the women in the game are 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 sexualized. All the All the women in the game are sexualized. All the women in the game are sexualized. All the women in the game, all the women in the game sexualized. Sexualized. All the women in the game are 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 sexualized.
I know I said that Angry Joe partially retracted this statement I just played over and over for you. He said he was wrong to say all of the women, but I'm sorry. This is horse shit, and I'm not letting it slide just like that. How the fuck do you make a mistake like this, huh? Why the fuck do you make a mistake like this? I didn't really believe that Joe is a lecher who only notices naked women in his games. That was just some shit I said to add potency to my comment. But there has to be some explanation for how he managed to miss so many non-sexualized women. It doesn't even seem possible to make an honest mistake that is this massive. You know, it's one thing when a feminist lies about gaming and his or her quest as a destroyer, but for a fucking gamer, a fucking respected gamer, a gamer whose opinions I enjoy and respect. And here he is, with his massive audience, making mistakes and going out of his way to paint the game's portrayal of women in Metro Last Light in the worst possible light. It constitutes propaganda, black propaganda, the kind that deceives. He doesn't say a damn thing about all of the non-sexualized women here. If you had only watched his review and hadn't actually played the game, you'd think all the women in this game were there only for the purpose of displaying tits and ass due to his biased reporting.
Titties, ass, titties, and ass.
Why the fuck is a gamer doing this? A guy who actually loves video games and the culture surrounding them. Why does he feel empowered to be so goddamn careless and make false accusations about the game world 4A created, huh? Remember back to his first response to me in the debate. He said that these two women were the only two females in the game that aren't naked. There are two non-naked females lying in a bed 4 feet away. There is a non-naked female 10 feet away working in the fucking kitchen. No, never mind, there's actually two here. Yeah, and whatever, complain about women being in the kitchen all you want. I don't care. They still aren't fucking sexualized. Mind you, he said all of this in the same comment where he accused me of blindness. Blind. Blind. You can't make this shit up, man. I don't really know what to think of all this. Maybe he has had his consciousness raised by the feminist destroyers who have set their sights on making gaming more female-friendly, which in most areas this has ever been done means making things significantly less male-friendly. Angry Joe isn't a self-proclaimed feminist to the best of my knowledge, but he sure as hell has behaved like one. I know this might come as a shock to people watching who are new to this stuff or have chosen to wash down that blue pill, but feminists are not the progressive force moving society towards a better place that they are often portrayed to be. And actually observing what they do to further their goals, they are prone to lazy dishonesty in their analyses. It's not enough for women to not have insurmountable barriers preventing entry into spaces that have been historically primarily male. Feminists want to reshape the organization towards the sensibilities of the fraction of women who can't handle emotional distress. In many cases, emotional distress that can only exist because of feminist ideology telling women that they should be upset about stuff. Feminists wield any power they gain with the objective of making the previously free, wild, and competitive male space just as suffocatingly limited as the mainstream, where subjective criticism of women, individually or as a group, is banned. I don't even need to prove that this claim is true. You know it is. In every case I've seen a feminist trying to make stuff female-friendly, which isn't even really bad in and of itself, they go and over-exaggerate how unfair or painful women have it. Every single time. Why any gamer would support having externally imposed limits on the type of scenarios and characters game designers are allowed to come up with boggles my fucking mind. Men care a lot less about political correctness when they don't have to keep up appearances for the benefit of women. This is why video gaming has gone on as long as it has without PC dictates completely ruling over developers. Red Pill Game Reviews is going to defend the video games hobby against anyone who misrepresents gaming for the purpose of installing a regime of fear. Whether it's dumb NRA leaders falsely saying games lead to violence, or dumb feminist destroyers suggesting that certain portrayals of virtual women should be off limits, lest they lead to disrespect for real, live women. As you've seen, I'm willing to make my case in as much massive fucking detail as it takes to debunk these claims. Now, let's get back to what we were supposed to be talking about. How does 7.5 minutes of approximately 16 titillating women add up compared to the rest of the non-sexualized women in the game? The game as it actually exists, not as it exists in the minds of someone whose brain has been riddled by feminist theology. I can't say for certain how many non-sexualized women there are, nor did I record all of them. But there are a damn sight more than 16 women in the game who are not there mostly for the sexual gratification of its primarily male audience. Certainly, the proportion of sexy women to regular women is fairly high, and this is due to the fact that there are simply few virtual females in the game at all. But how about we who are supposed to be fans of video gaming not over-exaggerate shit like this while our hobby is currently under attack from feminist destroyers? And while we're still considering the amount of alleged sexual objectification of women we have just quantified, how do those 7.5 minutes, 6 of which are completely optional, compare to 10 hours of killing men? Yeah, I'm gonna go there. And further, how do those 15 to 20 sexualized women compare to literally hundreds of deathulized men? Seriously, I just had to make up a word to describe what I'm talking about because nobody gives a shit about it. I don't either, but I'm not logically required to do so because I don't complain about sexual objectification of virtual women under any circumstances.
So you heard my friend. The whores leave and the men die. So, which are you? I'm a man, you son of a bitch! Well, here you go then. How about you? Are you a man too? Or a whore?
Don't kill me, please,
Man or whore?
What? A whore!
Pants down there. I'm gonna try my new bitch out.
Okay, with proper training, maybe we can rent your ass out. You get to leave. For now.
Enemies right here!
I mean, the size and scale of mass male slaughter must surely be offensive to those whose enlightenment is sensitive enough to be disturbed by the presence of sexy women, right? Oh, are these red pill questions revealing some people's hypocrisies? The same gamers that will vehemently defend video gaming from allegations that games cause violence will not defend their hobby when feminists say games support misogyny and demean women. They demand evidence and academic studies for the former, but when a feminist shows up, shit, they gobble his or her bullshit right up. In fact, it seeps into their thought process to the extent that they start criticizing games with exaggerated misrepresentations, just as a feminist would.
All the women in the game are sexualized.
But here, it just feels like a juvenile excuse to show some titties!
Oh, of course, man. It's juvenile to show simulated tits in a virtual tit bar. Don't all of you retards watching this know Gentlemen's clubs primarily cater to teenage boys who haven't yet got a hold of their hormones. Wait, no they fucking don't. Look, I get it. We're all supposed to believe that the male sex drive is intrinsically shameful. Even in the case of something as innocuous and harmless as enjoying the sight of bared breasts. All men of stupendous character will go out of their way to say how much they didn't enjoy these digital nipples. Truly, we lesser men are all in awe of you, bro. Meanwhile, a few young women in the metro hope, and they pray, that there are at least some men with functioning sex drives so that they won't have no choice of occupation other than to be ripped to shreds as an available gun in the angry army. Perhaps women care a lot more for their own continued survival than Angry Joe himself does, whom I expect would complain a lot less about a woman lying dead, face in the mud, than the far more terrifying scenario of a woman lying alive, her face in the sheets. There honestly aren't very many females in this game, which I actually fault the developer for with. I would have liked to see what they thought women's functions would be in a post-apocalyptic setting. By only having a few women in the game, they avoided having to do that. Showing them as mothers, civilians just sitting around, merchants tending shops.
Did you want something, young man?
And also as sex workers, just shows a lazy lack of attention to detail that is jarring compared to how much work they put in to make this world feel authentic. Nevertheless, I'm glad they didn't go and show a bunch of women in soldiers' uniforms standing around guarding the safe zones, but then have all of the enemy soldiers you fight and dead bodies you run across be male. The only women seen outside of metro station safe zones are part of roaming caravans and our good friend Anna.
Why did you do that?
And at the end of the game, no, don't worry, this is not a spoiler, you see her again as you hold off the massive new Soviet Union attack. I couldn't help but notice, that the Order's best sniper is not on the train headed to the front line. Standard. There are several conversations you can overhear where women talk about their husbands being conscripted to fight.
My husband got drafted, so I waited for him. Then one of his squad mates came over. I thought, that's it. He's dead. But no, he was captured by the Nazis.
I don't know how much conscription goes on in the Metro, but there are at least a few of these conversations in the game.
You tell me, what made you flee?
Mobilization, of course.
A boy your age has no business with a rifle.
They always overlook me. But then I was summoned to duty. Mom said with my luck, I'd bite the dust the second I hit the front lines. So, she got me into this caravan. Which seems like a mistake now.
You're still young. You'll find a place for yourself if we get anywhere.
Did Angry Joe see any of this? About him being forced to fight? He certainly didn't complain about the unfairness of it if he did. His only complaints about any unfairness in the Metro defense agencies was that no girls were allowed. Forgive me this opinion, but when it comes to storming the enemy's machine gun nest, not being allowed to be used as cannon fodder is only slightly less preferable to making my own conscious decision not to do so. What is significantly less preferable is being forced to be that meat shield. But hey, our intellectual and moral authorities haven't said anything about that in the context of video games, so let's not even mention it. Trouble is, to mention it, first you have to be paying enough attention to notice it, and ass and titties are hard to outshine. Hypocrisy, my friends. Incoherent worldviews are rife with it. In lampooning 4A's use of feminine sexual allure in this game, our dear Joe said,
Metro has a really out-of-place segment in it where it just throws nudity at you because, sex. and titties. You see that image? That's probably the developers as they're making this part of the game. They're like, IS, titties, IS, and titties.
Tell me, please tell me, when will we find him criticizing game developers' use of virtual males as pleasure devices in exactly the same manner, but rather for
death? Death.
Of course, we'll likely never hear it because his immune system actually functions properly when false or over-exaggerated claims about the violence in video games are made. I've been extremely hard on Angry Joe in this episode, and I kind of feel like I'm mega overkilled in my refutation of the things he has said. But I also think this is completely necessary. Big voices like his need to be discouraged from making irresponsible claims, and if that means doing a complete overkill on his ass, so be it. It's always pretty brutal when someone who is well-versed in red pill topics goes up against someone still asleep. I have studied these issues for years, and he likely hasn't. I have experience in dealing with the blue pill point of view he had taken, and so I was at a distinct advantage in that I already knew how to respond to everything he ended up saying. He probably has not run into many non-feminists who are able to properly debate. Despite all of this, I don't hold any ill will against Angry Joe. I think he's an honest guy, just trying to do right by his fellow man and fellow woman. We've all been there, man. We've all tried our damnedest to defend the honor of women. But in these times, men need to develop the discernment to know when it's appropriate to turn away the destroyers and their foul ideas, even if they claim to be coming in the name of womankind. Reputable gaming sites the internet over are giving feminist destroyers platforms from which to attack their own hobby that they should be defending, just as they defend it from bogus claims about gaming causing murder and desensitization to real-world violence. This is what Red Pill Gaming Reviews aims to do, to become its own platform to defend gaming from vicious attacks, even if the attackers come bearing the banner and claiming to be acting in the name of that group of people we red-blooded men desperately want to love us. And we will do so, all the while observing the highest standards of rationality and observance of the rules of proper debate. Red Pill Game Reviews won't always cover games with special attention to feminism or men or women. But since that is the vector that the enemy is currently attacking from with utmost vigor and is therefore in most need of defense, expect it to be a focus.
The best defense is a strong offense, and I intend to start offending right now.
But what you should not be expecting, though, is for them to all be this long. Holy shit, this video's fucking long. But I had 2 hours and like 800 gigabytes worth of footage to support as long and rambly in a video as I desired. I'm aiming to create nice, meaty, hearty episodes, but I think 30 minutes should be enough in most cases. Alright, so let us finally bring this beast of a review to an end. Remember, the red pill is about seeing and accepting reality, even if it's damn ugly. That any game receives a high score from me doesn't mean I find what goes on in the game to be good or desirable. Hell no. Hell no. The fact that the Metro has conscription adds to its red pill value because that's what would happen in this type of setting. It's not because I enjoy or endorse men being forced to fight. So keep that in mind as I award Metro Last Light 4 red pills out of 5. Why only 4, given that I think this portrayal of humanity struggling to survive is so good? I mean, they even show people going back to 20th century ideologies. That is extremely red pill. Even for red pillars, many of whom seem to believe, like, human experience is a straight line and societies can't go back to older systems or ideas. Yeah, you guys know who you are. Well, for a game to be awarded a perfect 5 red pills, that's pretty damn difficult. It has to be pretty much explicitly red pill, as in like I wrote the story of the game or something like that. I can't think of many games I would give that score to, but perhaps one day we will cover such a game in this series. Not today, though. That is it for this episode, friends. Please, let me know what you thought of this, good or bad. Criticism is most requested, since that is most likely to be the basis from which I can come up with improvements. Let me know which sections you enjoy, and also tell me what you thought was shitty or unnecessary and should have been left on the cutting room floor. I especially want to know what non-gamers thought of this, since I want my audience to include people who don't play video games at all, regardless of who you are. If you made it this far, you have done me a great honor. Thank you so much for spending this much time hearing what I have to say. I've also created a blog as well, redpillgamereviews.wordpress.com. I'm not quite sure what I'll do with it yet, but it's good to have some type of website to support the Red Pill Game Reviews brand. Alright, I've spoken enough. My name is Eincrou, and if I survive to make another episode, I will see you all in the next installment of Red Pill Game Reviews. Thank you for watching.